This is my review of the Byrds album, Farther Along. It was released in 1971 and produced by the Byrds. So I got this vinyl copy a few years ago, and it was pretty cheap. I found it at the record store. The CD version was my first copy of the album, and I think I had to buy this used offline. I couldn't find a new copy, and that was like over 10 years ago, I think, when I bought that. So this album's another one that gets a lot of hate. It's kind of like hard to talk about this album without talking about Birdmaniacs a little bit, because it's a huge reaction to the production of Birdmaniacs. The band was really unhappy with Terry Melcher's orchestration and like the extra stuff he added on that album, and so like they kind of just rushed back into the studio and recorded this really quick, and like I think most of the songs on here are pretty much just them live in the studio, other than like the vocals, and then a few other ones have some overdubs and things. But yeah, it's like completely the opposite of Birdmaniacs, but at the same time it kind of follows a similar formula in some ways. As far as like, it has a few originals, it has some covers, it has kind of some novelty songs, or at least one, and it has another bluegrass instrumental. So it has kind of a similar like pattern to Birdmaniacs, but just done completely in the complete opposite style. So it's really kind of interesting to listen to the two albums close together. But yeah, both albums get a lot of hate. I've never really disliked this album. When I got it, I listened to it a lot, and I still listen to it pretty frequently. So yeah, I've never really thought this was a bad album. I don't think it's the strongest of these latter Byrds albums. The album opens with Tiffany Queen by McGuinn. It's a cool opening track, kind of this like Chuck Berry like rocker. It's got some cool licks played on the 12 string that I just think it sounds really cool when he plays in that style. Yeah, just a fun opening track, not like anything groundbreaking, which is like this album, and I feel like a lot of this later Byrds stuff. I don't know if this is like why it gets so much hate, but it's definitely not like as groundbreaking as their early stuff was, but it's kind of just more like nice, enjoyable, like well played music than like the early stuff was. So just kind of a different thing than that early stuff, but a nice, enjoyable track. Second track, Get Down Your Line, Gene Parsons song. This one never really been my favorite song on the album, but it's not really bad either. I don't find it like the most memorable song, but the instrumental stuff has started to like kind of draw my attention eventually, and then like I kind of got the rest of it like into a little bit more, but it still doesn't like stick in my mind that much. Especially like the vocal melody, other than the chorus, I find kind of like hard to remember. But I like the bass playing on it a lot. I like the drumming. I think the band as a whole kind of plays well during this album, and it's cool to hear them more like stripped down after the last album, where they were kind of covered up a little bit by some of the orchestration. Even though I do like the production of that album. Third track, Farther Along. This traditional song sung by Clarence White. I've always liked it a lot. I like Clarence's vocal on it a lot. Just a really nice track. I like this version better than the Flying Burrito Brothers version that they did on Burrito Deluxe. Fourth track, BB Class Roadie, song by Gene Parsons and Stuart Dawson, who's one of their roadies. This track really did take a long time to grow on me at first. I really kind of like dismissed it and didn't like it at all. But as I've listened to it, it's actually kind of grown on me a lot. I like Clarence's guitar solo on it a lot, and just his playing throughout it. I actually enjoy Gene Parsons' vocal on it a lot. Like, he's kind of just doing this like acting thing, but I think it makes his voice like a little more interesting on here than it is actually on the earlier song that he sang on this album. So yeah, this song's growing on me, and it's got in the end kind of that goofy thing with all the bottles breaking and stuff. So just a fun song, not like anything too substantial, but it's fun and I enjoy it. Track Bugler. cover sung by Clarence White. This is my favorite song on the album. Basically, always been my favorite song on the album since the first time I listened to it. It's kind of the third song in their like trilogy of dog songs, which I've said before. Like those songs, I think always kind of get a little shit, except for this one. A lot of people seem to like this one, but I like all of those songs, and this is my favorite out of the three of them. Just a really great vocal from Clarence on it. I think one of his best that he did with the band, and it's got some cool mandolin that I think is also him that like he overdubbed later. Because I guess when they first recorded this song, he didn't think that they were taking enough time with it, so he kind of screwed up his vocals. So he'd get to go back and add some stuff later, and it's probably a good thing he did because it turned out really great. Yeah, it's a really great track. And then it goes from that to the worst song on the album, America's Great National Pastime. This is kind of I think the main Batten Foley atrocity in the Byrds catalog. Like I don't mind any of the Skip Batten songs like nearly as much as most people do. And this one, I mean, like I really did hate this song for a long time. I don't really hate it anymore. Now I kind of enjoy it in a way of like I see it as being funny, and like it's not a good song. I would never call it a good song, but at the same time, like I don't think it's not enjoyable. Like I think a song can be bad and still be kind of enjoyable in a way, and that this song definitely is that. Like it's not good, but I think that a lot of the hate that it gets probably comes from the fact that they released it as a single, which I think was more the record company than the band, but that was a horrible choice for a single. Just kind of a goofy song, but it is kind of fun. The band gives a good performance. I like Gene's drumming a lot on it. It's got the kind of the bass line I feel like dominates the song really, as far as like instrumentally and what I hear when I'm listening to it. I don't know. It's kind of funny in a stupid way. Just like it's definitely a bad song, but I don't mind it anymore. I don't skip it. When it's on, I have fun because it's just such a goofy song. 7-track Antique Sandy. This one is written by the whole band, plus their road manager, I believe, Jimmy Sider. This track I've always liked a lot. I think it's catchy. It's got some cool banjo on it. There's this part where McGuinn's voice gets this weird effect on it, which I've heard some people complain about, but I've always really liked it. It just kind of sounds really creepy, and it comes kind of out of nowhere, but I think it adds a lot to that like part that it's on. So yeah, pretty cool song and another highlight for me. 8th track, Precious Kate, another Batten Foley track. This one not nearly as bad as America's Great National Pastime. It's kind of this is a nice like enjoyable short track. Sung by McGuinn. It's got just I mean it's not like the best thing on here, but I've always liked it. It's got nice playing from the band, good vocal from McGuinn. The 8th track, So Fine, a cover. This one I think it sounds like they're doing kind of a group vocal on it because it sounds like they're all kind of singing together. Never really been my favorite thing on here, but I do enjoy the band's performance. I like the bass. Yeah, it's a cool track, but not like something that I listen to if I'm not listening to the whole album. 10-track Lazy Waters. This Bob Rafkin cover, who I guess that I kind of was like reading his name, and I'm like, that name sounds kind of familiar. And I guess he played on 2 albums that I'm a really big fan of, Phil Oakes' Gunfight at Carnegie Hall and Tim Buckley's Sophronia. So, yeah, this song cover sung by Skip Batten, and I think it's one of his better vocal performances. I enjoy the song. It's kind of a nice, like, acoustic song, good performance from the band. Yeah, another like minor highlight for me. The 11th track, Bristol Steam Convention Blues, is the Gene Parsons and Clarence White like bluegrass instrumental. I like this one. I think it's a cool album closer. Always enjoy hearing them play that like kind of style of music. The CD version of this album has 3 bonus tracks. None of them are really anything like that essential, even though I do really enjoy one of them. They all kind of just like point the way that McGuinn was going to go in his solo career, because I'm pretty sure all these songs ended up, well, one of them ended up on a later solo album of his, but so yeah, there's Lost My Driving Wheel, which I guess is just McGuinn and not even really like this lineup of the Byrds, and that ends up on his, I think it's from '73 self-titled solo album. And this version's okay, but like not anything essential. There's Born to Rock and Roll, which is on the next Byrds album, the Reunion album, and also on another Roger McGuinn solo album. So he tried this song like 3 times, even though this one didn't make it onto this album. It's not a great song, but I don't hate it as much as most people do. This version of it is okay. And then the final bonus track, Bag Full of Money. I really like this version on here. It's another song that pops up on McGuinn's first solo album. I think I like this version a little bit better because I'm more familiar with it, but that's the only bonus track that I think is kind of a highlight, and the other 2 are not that essential. So yeah, farther along, I can see why it's considered one of the weaker Byrds albums, but at the same time, to me this band like didn't really make a bad album. I don't know, I just think it's a nice kind of, like, it's not a groundbreaking album or anything like that, but most of the way through it's a nice listen. Even when it's kind of bad, like on America's Great National Pastime, it's kind of bad in a funny way. So, I don't know, to me it's just a really kind of fun listen all the way through, and I wouldn't like recommend starting here or anything. Definitely don't start here, even of these like later Byrds albums, but I don't think it was a bad way for this later era Byrds lineup.